Hello everybody, this is SlowWolf, and tonight we're bringing you the Awesomenauts Beta Patch Notes news for Beta Patch 2.7, build number 1. Tonight, we're going to be talking about damage being amped up 10 times, alongside all the HP and the numbers that go with it, a bigger reward for kills, and a bigger penalty for deaths, removal of almost all the solar items in the game, but not all of them by any stretch, bots and turrets, getting some changes to how they work and how they interact with one another, and finally, damage types introduced into the game, whether formally or informally. They're here, and it looks like they might be here to stay. Let's go over and take a look at our analysis, shall we? Now, I ask all of you to not panic. This is a beta. Things are gonna change. Don't worry. Ronimo's listening. So, let's go ahead and take a look at these patch notes. First off, everything's been amped up by 10. So that means your damage, your HP, the amount of numbers that you see up on the screen. Depending on how you look at it, this could be a good thing or a bad thing. It makes it a really good thing for balance. It means that you can now articulate your changes a little bit better. Instead of having to go up by 5 or 1%, 1 or 2 or something like that, you can go up by 10, you can go up by 1, you can go up by 2, you can go up by 30, you can go up by 37. The thing is, you have more precise changing, so that's really good for balance. However, it looks like things are a little bit cluttered on the fight front. Numbers everywhere are huge now, so if you're trying to look for precise numbers, good luck, folks. It's going to be a little bit difficult. Maybe Ronimo can go ahead and shrink that third number on the end there, because it's not as important as the other two at the far left and in the middle, but that's just a thought. Rewards for kills are now a little bit higher. Instead of getting 30 solar for getting the killing hit on somebody, you get 50. On top of that, you still get the 30 solar from someone dying on the other team. So everyone on your team gets 30 and you get an additional 50 for a total of 80. Your opponent loses an additional 20, meaning that they lose 50 solar. For the first time in the game, if you die, you can't recoup your losses by picking up all the solar on the way down. You will still lose solar in the long run of things. On top of that, if you die earlier on in the game, the cooldown for respawning is now longer. So don't die early, folks. It's a bad idea. Personally, I find it's maybe a bit too steep, but that's a talk for a little bit later. The solar items that have been removed have been flashy glasses, Leon's magnet piercing, and solar tree. So Ronimo explained this change by saying that we're going to get rid of passive solar items that had too big of an impact on the game. This means that solar items like Lone Shark, Monkey Hand, and Piggy Bank are still in the game because they're a little bit more active. You pick them up, they're a bit more risky, they don't automatically give you solar in the sense that you're good to go from the get-go. However, there is one item that's still in the game that matches the description that Ronimo has been talking about, and that is the solar cloud on Vinny. Now, I suspect they kept that in there so that way Vinny could continue to use his solar crab burgers. However, I am not sure if that's necessarily a good idea, since solar cloud can be an extremely strong change in how solar works and can allow Vinny to get to his late game a little bit faster than any other knot in the game now that solar tree is out of there. So, yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that particular solar item still being in the game, but you know, all things said and done, I liked solar items the way they were before, but now that it looks like Ronimo's moving away from stuff like solar tree and having passive solar gain like that be a part of people's choice and playstyle, I can't really say much on the topic about me liking them anymore, because that makes me the black sheep of the family. Next up, bots and turrets. Specifically, there's no more shields on droids that are underneath a turret. This means that they're a little bit easier to kill and push around, meaning people like Skoldir can actually control where the lane is. Oh my god, without using throws. It's pretty good. On top of that, droids move faster, which means that the instant they spawn, they're going to be in the lane quicker, which means that although there's not actually more solar on the field, it does feel like it's a bit more active, since the droids seem to show up a little bit sooner than you'd expect, and there are less passive footsie knots moments, and more active supporting your droid wave moments, as it looks like right now. On top of that, turrets now deal permanently less damage to droids, rather than having that shield. So don't worry, those turrets still can't defend themselves without your help. You have to go out and help your local machine gun toting buddy today. Finally, droids now deal less damage to each other, meaning that, again, you have to actively participate in pushing the droids yourself. And I'm not sure that's a bad thing. In fact, I'd say that's a good thing. It promotes people going towards the droids and actually fighting there and doing stuff around them, because without them, the droids are going to take forever. And then finally, the big kahuna in this patch thus far, damage types. So although it's not formally announced that there are going to be 3 new damage types, there practically are now in this game. I'm going to go ahead and label them right now. The first one is droid damage, meaning you only deal that damage to droids. The next is omni damage, because that sounds super cool. It deals damage to everything. And then finally, there's not damage. And not damage only does damage to other Awesomenauts. Good? Great. Let's go down the list of people whose upgrades now only deal extra not damage. Leon. His chainsword and his tongue damage now only does extra damage to Awesomenauts. Froggy G. His smash upgrades, the ones that give static damage boost to his dash, you know, those ones. Boombox and Twisted Tweeters now only deal damage to knots. Yuri, mind damage upgrades only deal damage to knots. Swiggins with his blue heart metal, so his grapple damage. Nah with his spit damage, wheedling damage, and wheedling placement damage upgrades. Coco with her lightning ball damage upgrades. Ted with his airstrike damage upgrades. Clunk with explode damage upgrades. Zerpa with nuke damage upgrades. Vinny and Spike with dash damage upgrades, both of them. Sentry with his mustache black hole sun damage upgrade. Scree with his steel drum damage upgrade, and finally Ayla with her rage damage upgrade. All of these things now only deal extra damage to Awesomenauts. Wow. So that's a pretty big change. On top of that, Raylan's replacement for flashy glasses only is a one-shot thing that deals a lot of damage, but to only one droid. It's still pretty bad. Let's not talk about that one right now. So, this is a pretty massive change, and a lot of people are getting mad about it. So let's go ahead and talk why this could potentially be a good thing. So first, a lot of these things promote ganking. Now when you get these upgrades, you're going to want to kill other Awesomenauts. That's how you're going to be able to get money. Now, if you pick up Chainsword, it's specifically so that when you slice at an Awesomenaut, you're dealing damage to that Awesomenaut. It's not to push waves or turrets anymore, it's to kill people. Froggy, same deal. His upgrades are now meant to kill people. Tornado, not a pushing tool really anymore. It is meant to kill people. I don't know how many more times I can say meant to kill people, but there you have it, folks. All those upgrades meant to kill people, people only. It adds a bit more complexity to the game this way too, which is good because it means that there's more strategy. It means that there's less, issue with just people picking up an upgrade and dumbly swinging around and having to work all the time. You actually have to choose what you're going to go ahead and do next. It forces a little bit more choice on the player. This is also going to emphasize shorter games with the higher gank money coming into the game and the higher death penalty coming into the game. Shorter games are going to be a thing that is going to be coming to your doorstep really, really soon. And that's probably not a bad thing. Awesomenauts has gotten to a point now where 30 to 50 minute games are a regular happenstance in upper leagues. And Awesomenauts started off as a thing that they wanted to make for new players at the 20-minute mark. Okay, so shorter games, not a bad thing. Finally, this nerfs push-heavy teams. People like Leon can no longer push, really, nearly as well as they could before. Frog does not doesn't fit as a pusher anymore, unless if you pick up exactly the right upgrades. There are a number of people on here that don't fit in push-oriented lineups anymore. And seeing as the metagame was more or less push-oriented to a degree, apparently, that's a good thing. From the games I've been watching, that hasn't been the case. There's been a lot of very interesting kinds of games where people have picked up ganking lineups, people have picked up push lineups, people have picked support lineups that rely on the other team screwing up. There's been a lot of variety in games so far, so I'm not exactly sure about this whole push metagame option that a lot of people have been touting for a good thing. But there's a couple of things that make people uneasy about these changes right now. First off, the variety of damage types puts a decent burden of knowledge on the player, which means that a person has to know what is going on before they even pick their character. And that could be problematic. If someone sees a frog and sees a Lone Star, they're like, oh, I'll just pick up a Leon. And then all of a sudden they realize, I can't really push easily anymore. And then they get steamrolled because the other team picked up a couple of extra push characters, and that's that. that's not necessarily a good thing. The burden of knowledge thing, in fact, is a really unfriendly change. And there's a couple of other things that add to that. For instance, the longer respawn timers when you die, the extra gold that you lose when you die, the unintuitive damage types, because some things just do more damage to nuts and other things don't, which create other awkward situations. For instance, Durple's nukes can completely annihilate people, but droid waves will just shrug off the extra damage. Chainsaws don't hurt robots, apparently, but stabbing in the back definitely works. Weedlings were never people. We always hated weedlings, but now that's a buff. So yeah, a couple of unintuitive changes there, and that's not a good thing either for new players. So that's something to keep in mind, I think. And finally, the big numbers everywhere are an issue as well. Finally, there's an argument as to whether or not, I find in my mind anyway, these upgrades are going to allow for more variety in builds, or whether or not they're going to cause them to be pigeonholing problem-solving moments rather than interesting choices. And that's a legitimate complaint. Are these upgrade changes forcing people to pick certain things only in order to do what they want to do? Or are these changes, in fact, encouraging any choice variety? I'm on the camp that has recently thought about it and gone, you know what? This might just increase choice variety in terms of your items. And this might be a bit of a pill to swallow, but bear with me. Listen, hear me out on this one. You know how everyone has been complaining about mandatory upgrades for the ever? Like, they've been complaining about mandatory upgrades like Trinomite, they've been complaining about mandatory upgrades like tongue damage, maybe, most of the time. But Chainsword, absolutely, mandatory upgrade for most people. Froggy, Hammer Pants, a mandatory upgrade for most people. The Smashes, absolutely mandatory upgrades on Froggy for sure, because they got rid of waves, they got rid of people, they got rid of everything. They were static damage, it was perfect. Upgrades like that are no longer mandatory, because they only damage knots. If you want to lane clear, you have to pick different stuff. Maybe you want to pick up double cooldown and Hammer Pants, as stupid as that might sound right now, but that will help out clear out waves a lot faster. If you want to go ahead and clear out waves, maybe you need to pick up Viridian Eel cartridges. That could be a thing. Like, all this stuff might be just making it so that way you have to choose different items now to fit better situations. Now, this also has the added downside of forcing new players to get used to these choices, to understand the nuances of every ability, and some of them, like I mentioned before, are really unintuitive. Like, a straight damage upgrade is a straight damage upgrade. Why isn't it dealing damage to droids? But on the other hand, for other players, it's like, okay, well, now I have to be able to choose between these two things, and it means that in-game choice matters a lot more. And whether that makes the game more unfriendly, well, of course, to a degree, it makes it more unforgiving. But at the same token, it makes it so that way upgrades aren't as brainless as before, adding an extra layer of depth to the game. And I'm not sure if that's a bad thing either. In fact, I would say that's a good thing. And if it outweighs the whole problem of new players, I would say that it does. New players aren't entirely dumb. If they pick up an upgrade, they'll understand that it works on some people and not others fairly quickly. And then they'll use that. They'll understand, hey, this is something that I can do, and I'm going to do it as best as I can. Leon's an assassin, I'm going to kill people with him. And that's what they'll do. If they absolutely want to push, they'll pick up Leon clones, which aren't people, by the way, so they probably don't take the extra damage from those not damage upgrades, and use that to push. Or pick up Backstab, so that way they can push the creep lanes a little bit faster. Now, I think that's a good thing, and I think that new players can pick up on it fairly quickly, and I think that this added depth to the game can overall actually improve it, given a couple of changes in numbers here and there. And I could say the same thing about a couple of other things. For instance, the death penalty. I think that needs to go. You shouldn't punish players for dying harder than I'm already dead for a long period of time, and on top of that, I've already lost gold that I have to recuperate in this crazy minigame, which is really just a palliative because it's another 10 seconds I'm dead, that I'm not worrying about being dead because at least I'm dropping and doing stuff. It's a death buffer. It is. I'm sorry. So, Adding more time to that is already a pain in the butt, but making it cost more solar, that's the cherry on top of a shit cake. So I would get rid of that. But overall, this isn't anything I'm panicking about. It's numbers changes. It's stuff that we can balance. And I think that overall, this could really help with the health of the game. It can make it more interesting. It can make it more deep in terms of its strategy, in terms of the item choices, in terms of actually being held accountable for what you decide to purchase in a game, instead of just purchasing the same old routine over and over and over again, and expecting to win every time. Which is still a thing, even considering the new shop system. Now, Derpal has to legitimately think, is Nuke a good idea? Or should I be going Cat Derpal? Who knows? Anyway, we'll have to see as the beta goes on what ends up happening. I will go ahead and make another beta notes patch report as soon as that happens. You guys stay frosty and stay tuned. Keep your ear to the ground. This is going to be a really big patch, and don't panic. Things can change, and I have faith that it can turn out okay. We just need to make moderate arguments and push things forward that are nice and smart. Capiche? Good. Not the end of the world. We can do this. Over and out.
Leave some for when I get back. Your team has destroyed a turret. Saddle up.